my own father, who has been a life force for my senior living career forever, because he's refusing to go live there in those senior living places, wants to be on his own. And the conversations in my own life has been trying to build the urgency with my family members and him to realize this is not a failure to move into senior living.
No.
It's not a, you are admitting defeat because you decide you want to be in a safe environment, or you can live independently, but maybe you don't need care yet, but you started falling.
Right.
And my own father has been having medical issues and falls, and me every Sunday for hours, Dad, I really want you to consider moving into senior living, because we know, Dad, that your falls, every time you fall is an increase in more falls to a tragedy, right? And your wish is to hold on to this ideal that you're going to somehow pass in your sleep miraculously. So I was on my vacation and he was having a good time. He was talking about his tomatoes and having a lovely summer. And on the Saturday night before I flew out, I got the call from Harborview Trauma that he had had that traumatic fall. And he had been alone for hours upon hours in his home. And there we were. And me trying to get back home. I respect that he had, and everybody has the right to say, I choose to stay home. Do they really understand what that does to the grandkids and the great-grandkids and the daughters and the sons who now have to live the trauma of the trauma unit at Harborview? I don't know. They truly understand that. So how do we build the urgency to say it's not defeat?
No.
It is not defeat to say, this next adventure I'm going to embrace. That this next adventure, I'm going to go in there and make it what I need and want it to be. Don't wait too late, is get ahead of it. Because if you're ahead of it, you get to choose where. So let's say my dad had survived this fall. He would have been still injured enough where he wouldn't have been on the front end of the decision.
Right.
Did we lose some years because I didn't effectively get him convinced? Maybe.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA. And we are back today at Chateau Pacific for Chateau Retirement, talking about their culture, everything that they do. And it's always an honor for me to come in. And I am here now finally with my friend Ellie, who is the Vice President of Sales for Chateau Retirement. And Ellie, you are incredible. You came into Chateau not too long ago, and you're kind of doing some amazing things in this organization in the sales. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So just before we start about that, a little bit about your background. You've been in senior living before, and you have a huge network of individuals around you that you are so highly respected.
Oh, am I? I had no idea.
You are. It's so
I'm
amazing.
a troublemaker.
Because I will say, oh, well, I'm working with Ellie. Oh, she's amazing. So I've had a lot of people that I know in the, in the greater Seattle area that know that you are so highly respected. So, but, so they brought you in to be the Vice President of Sales, and obviously you've seen an opportunity here, and it's just amazing what I've watched you do in the last, 6 months?
I think it's been almost 8, 9. I don't know.
9?
It's Kenji, who's the marketing guy, and it's a blur.
Yeah.
So there may be some haze there. Someone told me I created something yesterday, and I said I did. I like, really? Okay, show it to me. I forget. But, my career, I'm older in the sense of I'm about 5 years away from retirement. I'm over 61 now, and I have a full career in addiction, and then in Hollywood and in production and television and radio and negotiation, all these things that I did. And I actually am one of those that intentionally came into senior living about 8 years ago. So I came in with a set of eyes that came from outside the box anyway, because I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mover shaker, and I came in not knowing the industry, but being determined to learn every single aspect of the industry. So I intentionally came in about 8 years ago, and I wanted to be wherever my mom ended up, because my mom had started to fail. It was before COVID. And for me, it was coming in and going, well, some of these systems and these operate is very archaic. Like some of these thinking, like you guys are like 20 years behind the times in marketing and sales, in business. Like, so I was perplexed by that in some ways. I had the ability to be in companies that really, I got what I needed from that company and moved on very quickly, because I wanted, here's the thing, here's the truth of it. In senior living, I came in as a president and vice president, owning my own companies, very C-suite, and it didn't actually match to senior living's version. Like, I couldn't transfer my skills and title to senior living. They basically said, you don't know senior living, so you got to start all over. So I had to start all over. I had to start in sales at the very bottom, as a, development, media, PR, salesperson. And I went, okay, if that's the way it's going to be, then I'm going to use these companies and learn as much as I can, build up, do the magic for them. And then once I've tapped out on my learning curve or the ability to grow, I'm moving on, which is a very cutthroat way of looking at it. But I'm older, so I only have so much time to try to get to my skill set, right? So I did that. I went to skilled nursing, and then I went, which was, the number 2 facility in the United States for COVID. So I was there as their media liaison during that. My mom passed in my facility during that time. Then I went to standalone memory care, private owned. So I went nonprofit skilled nursing to private memory care. And then I went to ILAL memory care. And then I went to sales specialist. Then I went and traveled for 3 years, where I was in a hotel for 300 days a year. New development all across the United States and Canada. And I'm now, I feel like I totally have now the experience and knowledge of this industry. I didn't know I had the respect, but I figured at some point I'd get some, I'd had my bona fides, right? I got my footwork in. And then I went, okay, now I'm tired of traveling. I want to go home.
Yeah.
I want to be home with my grandkids. And where could I live? I was still looking for that company. Yeah. Home. And family, which you saw my LinkedIn post today was it was truly about, I hear a lot of bad things about companies now. It's not family. Well, I was looking for something that I could feel like that was my final place to work till my career ended. And someone said, what about Chateau? And I said, what's Chateau?
Which is interesting. They've been around
Chateau?
25 years, and yet people don't necessarily haven't known who they were because they didn't do a lot of marketing before.
They didn't do a lot of marketing and branding. So I'm like, well, let me learn about this Chateau. And so I applied. And so this was last fall. And it was like the interviews alone was like, well, this is different.
Very different.
And the involvement from the chiefs on down, we call them the chiefs, and the leadership team, and Mr. Godfrey and the vice presidents and the executive directors, how involved they are. Family owned, regional. Longevity.
Amazing.
Just my interviews alone, I'm like, well, I've never been grilled quite like this before. And the participation of that. And then it was about, let me find out the value of this company. Sure. And honestly, it's been about almost 9 months. Every day I find out more value that I'm like, how come the world doesn't know about this? Yeah. So Kenji and I, our job is to get the world to know about this. And then bringing on and bringing that to the team, my sales teams, to be able to help them articulate that. Because there's a lot of competitors out there. And when people come into our world for tours, or we call them prospects, meaning that someone's coming for a tour, they're deciding, family or a prospect, is what do we tell them that makes us different than the guy down the street or all the competitors? And honestly, it's the easiest sell in the world in Chateau because the value is so big.
Right.
There's the staffing and the nursing and the food and the ownership and the longevity, and there's the
name matches the bricks and mortar.
The bricks and mortar. We own the sign is who owns the company, and really articulating that and bringing that out to the world to see.
Same ownership.
Same ownership.
25 years. It's like this.
Same ownership.
Never happens. Hardly ever.
Hardly ever happens. So I am the most blessed person in the world that I was someone said, how about Chateau? And they have an opening. And then making it through the interview process and being accepted into this work family. I am the most blessed person I know for that in my final stages of career. So my legacy can only be then turning around and helping the sales teams and the marketing to understand how to differentiate the value and how to express to the people coming in, whether it's the family or a loved one or a caregiver or the person themselves, what makes us different, and also being okay with the hard conversations.
Yeah.
So today's interview was already on the schedule for a long time, but what's changed for me is in the last week, my own father, who has been a life force for my senior living career forever because he's refusing to go live there in those senior living places, wants to be on his own. And the conversations in my own life has been trying to build the urgency with my family members and him to realize this is not a failure to move into senior living.
No.
It's not a you are admitting defeat because you decide you want to be in a safe environment or you can live independently, but maybe you don't need care yet, but you started falling.
Right.
And my own father has been having medical issues and falls, and me every Sunday for hours, Dad, I really want you to consider moving into senior living because we know, Dad, that your falls, every time you fall is an increase in more falls to a tragedy, right? And your wish is to hold on to this ideal that you're going to somehow pass in your sleep miraculously. I hope that for everybody, but most people don't. There's usually some tragedy attached. And so I went on my vacation on July 20th and took him out for Father's Day and gave him a hug. And I said, I'm going on vacation on the 20th. My last directive to you is no falling and don't get into any trouble. So I was on my vacation and he was having a good time. He was talking about his tomatoes and having a lovely summer. And on the Saturday night before I flew out, I got the call from Harborview Trauma that he had that traumatic fall. And he had been alone for hours upon hours in his home. And there we were. And me trying to get back home. And it was the Don't Wait Too Late, which I have the trademark pending already for Don't Wait Too Late. Now I'm living it that I respect that he had, and everyone that comes into our purview, into these communities, into our offices for a tour, has the right to say, I choose to stay home. Do they really understand what that does to the grandkids and the great-grandkids and the daughters and the sons who now have to live the trauma of the trauma unit at Harborview? I don't know. They truly understand that. If he had known what this end would look like for him alone without someone around him, I don't know that he would have chosen that. Right. So how do we build the urgency to say it's not defeat? No. It is not defeat to say, this next adventure I'm going to embrace. That this next adventure, I'm going to go in there and make it what I need and want it to be. So my dad was cognitively fine. He was fine. He could have done cognitively another 10, 15 years. Physically, declining. But did we lose some years because I didn't effectively get him convinced? Maybe.
And you'll live with
maybe
that
I'll live
piece
that
all of your life.
all my life.
Because
Always waiting for that call.
yeah, and
Always waiting
the
for that
thing
call.
is that how many families are adult children are thinking, well, dad wants to stay home, so I need to keep my mouth shut. I have, and it's not necessarily not honoring their wishes. I think about fear. I think, fear of change is overwhelming, obviously, especially for someone that is declining, right? They feel more vulnerable. And so they hang on to something that not necessarily is the best choice, but it's what's familiar, even though it's not supporting them. And how do you structure a conversation around that? A lot of times families are locked. They don't necessarily know how to say the right words. I mean, are you finding that specifically with the people, the prospects that you speak with?
Often. So my dad and I had a very open, transparent communication, and every Sunday we talked about it. And I really truly respect that. He had 40 tomato plants planted, and he has this almost, 3/4 of an acre, and he was doing his thing. But after about the fifth fall in the last 6 months, you can see this thing happening, the shift. And the don't wait too late is get ahead of it. Because if you're ahead of it, you get to choose where. So let's say my dad had survived this fall. He would have been still injured enough where he wouldn't have been on the front end of the decision.
Right.
We would have been, that's what happened to my mom, is that we were now choosing for her.
Yeah.
So we have choices. Can I be on the front end of this decision, select the place, which a lot of our wonderful residents are. I wonder sometimes if men are a little more stubborn this way. I don't know. That my dad, and maybe as a mother, my mom was more persuaded by a daughter to a mother versus a daughter to a father in this, perhaps. You're walking this fine line of honoring their wishes because he is cognitively okay. And not trying to do scare tactics to him, but saying, Dad, it's proven that once you start these falls and these measures, it's not going backwards. Once you're a pickle, you don't go back to being a cucumber.
No.
Right? You're a pickle now. So once you've fallen enough times, the rates accelerate, exceptionally accelerate, that you're going to have a traumatic fall. So I think this is my personal story, again, is a teaching moment for us all on building, how do we build urgency without and scaring people away, but also having that hard conversation to say, it's time.
Right.
Or something's going to happen. You're either not going to survive and it's going to be brutal for your family, right? Or you're not on the front end of the decision. Because then all sorts of other things come into play. Do you have the right POA? Do you have the right executor? Do you have the right decisions? Are you set up? I mean, the denial all the way. But first and foremost, is it time?
Right.
And what is this belief system that a lot of people, it's not just some, it's a lot of people have, that I'm supposed to stay home? That's the win. The trophy is if I stayed home my whole time. Is that really a win? Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I don't have that attachment to a home. So I can't speak to that. Maybe younger people don't, or maybe I've just, because of my parents were so attached to their things, maybe I've taken a different route. I don't have an attachment to say, I win if I stay home for the rest of my life.
Sure.
But I think millions of seniors, and it's reinforced by horror stories of senior living, that's what gets the news, versus the joy and the adventure of moving into a wonderful senior living. So my next steps will be, as I grieve this, I'm still in shock, to be honest with you. I'm still in shock that this has happened. I think that how divine practices work, my daughter ended up unexpectedly with me on my last 4 days of my vacation, so she was there with me. when the news came, and my other daughter was able to go be with him at the time at Harborview until I could get home. I feel so blessed that Chateau has proven itself to me to be that family work environment that I always dreamed of, because not 5 minutes after I got the call that he passed, their flowers arrived, and every single leadership member, the chiefs, everybody was, that whole week that he was in Harborview trauma, which, by the way, the new unit is mind-blowingly wonderful, the new trauma unit, the neurosurgeons and whatnot. But every day that week, I was getting messages from, whatever you need, whatever amount of time you need, we're fine. You just take care of you, the sales team members.
It's incredible.
So I felt wrapped in love by my own company during this shocking what? So it's like, okay, how many ways can a company prove themselves to have the value that I would want to live in, let alone the family members? Now, how do I translate that to my sales teams to say, have that hard conversation? Have that, don't wait too late. So I am going to finish the trademark. I don't know what, I've got the URLs now, because I feel like if even one or two people move in sooner on the front end of this decision, Nick's journey wouldn't have been in vain. It's okay to stay home, but are you aware of all the, most people don't die in their sleep.
Well, and
Most
I think
people don't, and he
I
was
think a
alone.
lot of it, like you're saying, we're doing a lot of education, but it's getting these
do you
these
get the
stories
word
out there. And the thing is I think a lot of older adults, and a lot of us are baby boomers, okay? We tend to go with what is familiar. It's the old ways, that's how it always works, so I'm not going to change it. And the world has changed. When we think about just really what's going on with the whole culture of the American culture, one of the things that is interesting is that the sandwich generation lasts longer now than what it used to when I was in that sandwich generation time, because what has happened is kids are staying home longer because of the economy, and seniors are living longer. And so there's this feeling that, like, if you're taking care of dad and you're, a lot of times a senior will say, oh, well, my daughter's there for me, or my son is there for me, but they don't realize how long and much of that life that they are actually being involved in, that there's sacrifices being made on their behalf.
So what is more important, staying home in what's comfortable, that you've outgrown it in your own aging progression, right? If that's your thing, I respect that. But if here's how I know, because now we're clearing on, this is a property that my family's owned for 120 years. So now I'm going through all this stuff that my grandparents, great-grandparents, all their stuff. So I get why that matters. However, is that the win? But the day this happened, he made 3 Charles Schwab day trades, and he ordered green tea capsules, because this man was gonna live. He was gonna live another 15 years, and he had his tomato plants, and he had watered.
Old is he?
He's 86, but he was not done. This is a man that was not done. And I think giving that up, moving somewhere that may not be your home yet, but having another 5, 3, 4, even another year with your family, with people around you as a social person, is that a fair trade-off? I mean, do you want that to be the end early? Or if you could extend the quality and quantity of your life, it's not my answer to give. It's every person should be asking that, though. And every family member should be asking that of their parent. What is your deepest desire? Is it holding on and being here forever, no matter what?
Yeah.
No matter what we go through,
No
or
matter
being
what
alone,
cost
or
it
how
is
it
to
ends.
your own life too. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
potentially shortening your life, which this did. My dad didn't have to necessarily pass last
Right.
week. Or if I could get another year, 2, 5, and I grow and contribute and be a part of something, and I could see my family. I guess that's the question, isn't it? And being able to articulate that and not being afraid to ask that.
Well, and I also think that all siblings need to support the caregiver, the person that's on the front line. And a lot of times what happens
Got
is
an opinion.
everybody thinks that they know better than somebody else. And, I always say to families when I talk to them, it's like, if you're not the front line taking care of mom or dad, your job isn't to throw your opinion in. Your job is to support that individual, because obviously they're seeing your dad day after day after day. And then all of a sudden a sibling comes to town. I mean, I've seen what happens often with dementia. There's the perfect example. Dad can have, mom can be losing her faculties, mind ways. But then, sister comes from out of town, and all of a sudden mom is just
Of course,
clear
mom
as-
knows how to button it up and do it right. We know how to compensate.
And so but then they're exhausted afterwards, and that caregiver, that family caregiver, is dealing with the aftermath. So again, they don't have the real picture. It's not realistic. It's like this fairy tale that anybody can prop themselves up and say, I'm just fine living at home. I don't need to go to senior living. When in actuality, you were there almost, every day practically taking care of him.
Well, I think, my dad was a Spitfire, but I also think if that's your choice, then I respect that. And if that's your
Right.
heart to remain no matter what. Because that's your life.
Right.
But if you want to continue, then maybe we as family members, it's once we switch. Now, my kids have made it very clear in the last week is you will listen to us kind of thing, because they've been tormented this last couple weeks since it happened.
Yeah.
So, but it's also of really what's your goal and why, and having those conversations.
Right.
I'm really more concerned that we're not having enough of these conversations with our parents.
Yeah.
Or
We're not. I mean, as a
I'm more
society, we're
concerned,
not.
why are we not clearly having these conversations?
And going back to what I said, the average adult son or daughter, they don't even know how to approach the subject.
It's hard. I'm not saying it's
How
not
do
easy.
you-
It's
and-
not easy.
Yeah. And so, I always say, first of all, don't spring anything on them. Say, and talk about yourself. And I always say, Mom, I've been having some thoughts lately that I'd really like to talk to you about. But I don't want to talk about it now. But here's what I want to talk about, my concerns.
Yeah.
And so let's set a time so you can get an idea of kind of where you're coming from. I want to honor you that way, but I want to have a real honest discussion. And then don't be afraid to hire a professional that can come in and help facilitate
Absolutely.
these types of conversations, because, how often do I hear the term, and the hair goes up in the back of my neck. It's time to parent my parent. No, it's not. Never. And that's the thing that I think, one of the things that to stay that daughter and let somebody else that's a professional have those conversations that can actually, raise these questions about, oh, well, Jim, you had 6 falls in the last 6 months. Tell me about what that was like.
Yeah.
And then, that professional can say, wow, that really stressed out your kids. Did you ever think about that? All of a sudden, it's coming from someone else. It's not coming from you. It's not coming from that.
And that's why use us as that resource, the community people or the advisor to be that resource to right. And the other thing, just to kind of wrap this whole conversation, the other portion of it is the planning to move or not move. But also I would hugely encourage that you have the pulse that has your wishes.
Yep.
God bless them.
Physician's order of life-sustaining treatment. You get it from your doctor.
And I have now gone to 3 fire stations in the last week because I'm not upset, but I will say the fire department did not pull his pulse off the fridge, which I promised him they would. Don't know all the circumstances on that, but they got the name misspelled. So by the time I went from home to Northwest Hospital to Harborview, they were already doing the life-saving measures because they didn't know. So, but here's the thing. Once we were able to identify, get the records, I knew what to do. I knew how to correct it.
Right.
For that. But make sure you have the pulsed
Form.
the form
neon
on
green
and
form.
your advance directive, because if the family needs to know what your wishes are, that's under these circumstances, as horrible as it was, it can't be about me.
No.
It has to be about that person's wishes.
Right.
Do you even know what their wishes are? Do they have a advance directive? Do they have the will? Do they have the pulse, which is on the fridge, which paramedics are generally go to the fridge? And if not, get one. Because then you need to know the languages, and then you have to honor those wishes. Because at the end of the day, it becomes about what did he want, right? It was no longer about us. It's what were his wishes. Now, blessedly for him, he listened to that. He listened to that. We need you to have this, this, and this. And he did do all that.
That's awesome.
So I'm very grateful to the paramedics in the work that they did to get him the help they did. I did go to make sure at the fire stations. Am I being accurate when I tell all my teams and the people coming into our buildings that you go to the fridge? And they said generally yes. So there may have been a reason that something happened that they didn't, because I don't know all the details. But because I was not in town, I was in California. But have a pulse, have an advance directive, have your will. Make sure your kids know the wishes, so they can follow them.
Yeah.
And then hang on, because it's a grief is a whole other topic, isn't it?
Yeah. And then circling back to Chateau.
So here we are.
Yeah. So number one, they supported you through it all. And
they still will, because I probably have to collapse here and there.
Yeah, of course you do. But I also want to bring back to the fact of, I always say Chateau was my support network when I was trying to take care of my mom. And I got amazing advice, back in the early 2000s about, how I need to be. And I remember, I used to correct my mom because she had a little bit dementia. And I would say, oh no, Mom, that's not right, And the director of nursing took me aside and said, Suzanne, she said, the truth at this point in their life is pretty much irrelevant.
Yep.
So we know it's okay. And I was so invested in making sure that I was accurate, because you do these things. And so talk about a resource for families. And my grief when I lost my mother, I lost the community. I felt like that I didn't have, it was more of a loss of that. So when it's kind of coming full circle to family for the adult children as well, at least it was for me.
Well, I think for Chateau, on the employee side, the fact that I get home from California, I'm doing through the whole Harborview thing, and then Dad passes. But my first days back at work, the fact that I could come into every stand-up meeting and express what I was going through, and every single person respected and loved and knew that journey, because this is our work, right? The fact that we do that for our employees here at Chateau means that we're doing that for the families here as well, right?
And you do, because I was the recipient of that.
Yeah. So it's not made up messaging.
No.
Then when we say that Chateau is unique and different, and that there's something about this magical little family-owned company that's hanging in there and doing all the right things, that actually it's incredibly authentic.
It is.
And what a blessing.
Yes.
Because if I had gone anywhere else and sat in a meeting and not been able to express what I was going through, and everyone just looks at me blankly, because we don't talk about those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I just said it. Like, here's what I'm going through.
Yeah.
And everyone went, oh, and every single one of us understood
And
that.
when you think about, because when my mom went bad and she was in a bad situation, I lost my job over it.
Yeah.
So when you look at what's the culture like, you have an organization that gets it.
Yeah.
And not only is there to support your residents, they're there for the families and they're there for their staff.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. And that's, to me.
And if you don't have that, maybe you're in the wrong job, wrong industry, wrong company.
Yeah, it's
right?
amazing.
Because they are there.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
There you go. That's
Ellie,
my story.
My absolute dearest friend, I am so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
And
It's going to hit me.
your daddy would be so proud of you today for telling
He'd
this
probably
story.
be pissed off. There you go.
Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.